Well, hey everybody, and welcome to part 2 of our coin and jewelry find for Justin. We've got our stuff all filtered off. You saw at the end of the last video that we actually ended up with, I think it was 1.68 grams of at least about 18 karat gold. I actually talked to him about it, and he told me that he melted the dimes and he had a real little one of those little thin, I don't know, I'm sure you all have seen them, but they're like for a very petite or very small pendant or whatever, sterling silver chain that he threw in it. Well, that chain must not have been sterling silver. It was more than likely white gold, and that is how we ended up with 1.68 grams of gold in our silver mix. So he was happy to hear that, because he actually just got it, I think he said, like, in a junk store or flea market or something, and he actually bought it as silver for next to nothing. So he was pleased to hear that he was going to get a little bit of gold. I'm pleased that I'm going to get a little bit of gold. And now we're going to move on to go ahead and getting our silver out of this solution. I haven't denoxed it yet. I know we have some active nitric acid in there, and I don't know, there's some out there that say you shouldn't do this and you should do it, or you should just put more silver in it until it's gone. I'm going to denox it with urea. I always have done it this way, and I always do it this way. So we're going to put a little bit of urea in here and get rid of our nitric acid, and then we're going to double our volume of water. And it is very cold out here today. It's cool, it's overcast, so we may actually have to warm this up a little bit. Let me go ahead and put this up on the warmer, and we'll get back at you in a second. Okay guys, we're back. I actually got this warmed up a little bit. I don't seem to be getting too much of a reaction, so we must have been very close on our nitric. I do have our coil in our little light nitric rinse bath to clean it up. I'll take it out of there and rinse it. And I did warm up some distilled water to get everything about the same temperature. So we're going to go ahead and double our volume of water. So we got about 500 there. We may put another 100 mils in. I'm not positive yet. Let's go ahead and transfer this now into our drop jar. I should actually put on a pair of gloves, because I know if I don't, I'm going to end up with some black fingers. So let me do that real quick. I wasn't thinking about the silver nitrate, so let me put my gloves on real quick, and we'll get right back at you. Okay, there. Now hopefully I didn't already get some on me. I don't think I did, but we're going to go ahead and rinse this thoroughly with distilled water, because believe it or not, there is still some silver just stuck in here on the glass. And if you don't believe it, look at that little bit of color. So that tells you that you still got silver left in there. So let's make sure we rinse everything very good a couple times. And then we're going to get set up to do our drop. And see how much silver we ended up with out of this. I'm not seeing any more color, so we'll go ahead and put that in there. We'll go clean our jar in just a second. Stir this up, and I'm going to get our coil ready and get our camera set up over here so that we can do our drop and time lapse it. So we'll be back at you in just a second. Well, good morning, everybody. It is the next day. Our silver, I let it go overnight. So as we can see, I believe we are good to go. Yeah, it coil's pretty clean. I'm gonna stir this up one time with the coil, get all the silver off of it. And let it sit probably for, I don't know, maybe another hour just to be sure. But you can see how clean our coil looks. I believe we've got all our silver out of solution, but like I said, just for to be safe, I'll let this sit in here for about another hour, and then we'll go ahead and start our rinsing process. Dry our powder out, divide it up, and see what we ended up with. I'm gonna get with him this afternoon and see if he wants shot or just the powder, or how he wants this returned. So we may or may not have a pour from this. I don't know yet. Like I said, I'll get with him later this afternoon. So we will see you all in a bit. Well, okay guys, it has actually been a couple of hours. We didn't get any extra. I've got my coil out and rinsed and hung up. We didn't get any more silver out of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step over and go ahead and get our rinse water turned on, get it boiling, and we are going to go ahead and pour this off. I'm going to pour off the copper nitrate into this little jar, but I'm going to leave it sit for a couple days, and then we're going to pour our rinse water off in here and leave it set for a couple days. Make sure that we didn't get any, silver, miss any silver. And we're going to go ahead and start getting this rinsed out and get it dried and get it weighed up. So I will get back at you in just a bit. Okay, as you can see, we've got our copper nitrate poured off in this little jar. We're going to set back here for now and leave that sit for a couple days. You will get a little fine dusting of powder on that. I've poured out, well, we can probably pour out just a little bit more. What you want to do is try to get as much of this copper nitrate out, and I actually just sometimes will just kind of squirt it when I'm pouring it, or mist it, and turn the jar a little. Your silver may flop at this point, so you just got to be careful of that. If it does, it'll flop and shoot down straight out of the jar. It'll just flop over to one side, because I actually have it kind of at an angle to try and keep from pouring any silver out. And that'll sometimes take care of your floaties, sometimes it won't. But anyhow, we've poured out about as much of that as we can. I'm going to set that back there. We will get a little fine dusting, and that actually caught maybe some of the silver that we accidentally poured out. And now we're just going to go ahead and transfer this into a beaker so that we can rinse it easier and have a better pouring spout. And the reason you want to rinse this so good, this is going to be 99.9 fine silver or better right now. Right the way it is right now, without even putting it through a silver cell. So the reason you want to rinse this at this point instead of just melting it is you want to do away with every bit of that copper nitrate. You don't want any contaminants. So while that water's heating up, we're going to just let this sit here, and I'm going to go grab some breakfast. By that time, we should be good to go on our boiling water, which will also help dissolve any, or get rid of any copper, not copper, but lead or anything like that when we pour this in here. I can tell that we got a really good drop just by the color of this silver, even though it's still in there. And you see that, see how much blue is still in that? So anyway, we'll get right back at you in just a second. Okay, our water has finally boiled. Before I hit this with the water, I am going to mist it and knock some of the silver off the top. And I'm going to try and pour just a bit more of this off into our main pour-off jar. And this is why you do this. I mean, there's a real fine little dusting of stuff that's coming out of that because I shook it to get it down. So and if you shake this, you'll see every time you do that, you'll get a little more fluid, but you're also going to pick up some really fine powder. So that's the reason for the pour-off jars. But anyhow, miss that, knock all that stuff off the top, and we're just going to set that back to settle for a couple days. And now we are going to go ahead and add our water. I found, as many others have found that do this, a lot of small rinses are better than one or two big rinses. And the first one, you're going to get floaties and that kind of stuff, but again, that's why we're using pour-off jars. But I can tell by just the looks of this that this really came out nice and clean. We're just going to pour this off in here, and we're just going to keep doing this till our solution runs clear, and we're going to even do it a few times past that. So then what we will do is we will actually evaporate this stuff down, and we will add it to our copper nitrate bucket for processing later on, where we will get the copper out pretty much the same way we got the silver, except we will use iron to drop our copper, just like we used copper to drop our silver. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. It's going to take a while, and there's no point in making you guys sit here and watch me just do this over and over. So I'm going to do it till we get it clear, and we'll get back at you. I can check my emails in a second and see if how he would like this returned. So we'll be back at you in a bit. Okay, everybody, we have made it to our, this is the second clear rinse. I'm actually going to probably do it a couple more times just to be sure. I don't know how well you can see that, but we really got a super good clean drop out of that. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it sparkle or not, but anyhow, we're going to go ahead and rinse this, pour it off, and rinse it a couple more times. I'm going to go ahead and just make this my last rinse. And as you can see, that is nice and clear, which is what we want. We spend all this time refining this out to make it pure. You don't want to foul it by leaving a little bit of copper nitrate in it. There's no point in it. So rinsing is very important. Very, very important. This is a very important step to refining. Rinsing and filtering, which is not stuff you see a lot of because it's long and boring. I mean, it's probably the longest and most boring part of doing this, but it's one of the most necessary parts. So we have cleaned our silver powder. We have poured our material off into 2 pour-off jars, which we will let settle. We shouldn't. I don't think this one needs to be boiled in hydrochloric acid. We have a nice clean powder. This is going to be brilliant silver white when it dries. So no need in going through the step of the hydrochloric acid, because I really don't think there's anything else in there but beautiful silver. So I don't know how well, like I said, that you can see this, but it is absolutely gorgeous. We're going to get as much of this fluid off as we can. And tipping and turning your beaker will kind of force the solution, or shaking it like this will force the solution forward. So you can pour it for a little, pour out as much as you can. The more you get out of it, the quicker your drying time is going to be. So do one more shake and one more side turn and one more little pour. I just want to make sure we're not pouring out any silver. Alrighty guys, we're gonna set this back here. We're gonna let these 2 jars settle for a few days. I mean, there's not going to be much in them. There'll be a little bit. And we're going to take this gorgeous stuff inside and put it on the little warmer in there and get her dried up. So we'll be back at you when we are ready to do our weigh-in. Okay, everybody, here is our dried powder. I'm going to go ahead and weigh it. I am getting 296.19. Okay, 296.19 minus, and our beaker weighs 223.10. So that gives us 73.09. 73.09, which was a little less than I expected. I expected about 79, so it's about 6 grams less. But now we also have to take into account we had probably 2 grams at least of carat gold in there. So that gives us, because we ended up with 1.69 grams, so that, let's see, gives us 2, that gives us 75. So let's just call it a 75 gram return with the gold. So our percentage of silver was 73.09. We had an 83% silver, and we had about 2% gold. 2% gold. So that gave us a return of 85%. A total return of 85%. So that's not too bad. I mean, again, it's a little less than I expected, but hey, I didn't expect to get, end up with a gram of almost pure gold if you figure it out that way. So that's a good thing. Alrighty, so now we have 73.09 divided by 4 equals, so 18.27 grams is mine. So I'm just going to put my silver. Oh, by the way, we're also not having a melt. He is actually doing a smart thing. Gold is different. You can melt gold, and you don't seem to lose any, or just a minute, so almost an unweighable portion. Silver, it seems like every time you melt it, you lose a little. So he's actually going to have some pendants and some jewelry made from this, from a jeweler friend of his. So he is going to take it back in powder, which is a wise move, because if I even pour it in a shot, a little more is going to get lost. Then it's going to get melted again, and a little more is going to get lost. So taking it as powder, he won't, you know, we're going to eliminate at least 2 melts, 1 to 2 melts. So that should save him, you know, a small fraction or a small percentage of silver. So I need to take out about 18 grams and put it in my jar. And there we go. 278 even is close enough. So this is what we will be returning to Justin. I have put my silver in my jar that I'm going to keep. I will bag this up and then vacuum seal it and return it to him. And he should have enough to, let's see, 277 to make, you know, a couple rings, some pendants, and whatever else he's going to have made now, because now his jeweler is actually going to alloy this back to sterling silver. But now they can do that because they know exactly what they have here. So that wraps this video up. Oh no, it doesn't. We still have to do this. I forgot about our little gold. So I need to try and cut off 25% of that. Let's see how good I am with these big old bolt cutters on this little tiny button. So what we're going to actually do is I'm going to try and split this thing. So there is a split, just about, and let's see, 1.69 divided by 4. I need 0.42 grams for me. That's 0.65, so I need to cut a little bit more off. 0.42. Unbelievable. Exactly 0.42 I cut this piece. This little piece weighs exactly 0.40. It should be 42.25, but that's fine. Close enough. So that will also go to me. Whoops. And this will go to him. Okay, now that wraps us up, guys. So I have 0.42 grams of gold, which is just a little bit less than a half. So that is, and it's 18 karat. So I'll call it probably $20 worth of gold. That little bit of gold right there, isn't that amazing that that's 20 bucks? But anyway, and he has his gold and silver, which we will get back to him. And now I can say, we will see you guys in the next video.